Welcome to the B2B Uncut podcast. I am Aaron, your usual host. And with me today, I have not one, but two guests. This is a red letter day for our little podcast hosted out of Missouri. I have Matt Boland and Chad, not Witt, but just Chad Andrews, joining from apparently Indianapolis, according to the map behind him. Why don't you gentlemen introduce yourselves and tell us where you're from? And I will note that Matt is not an Oro Commerce employee, despite the fact that he is repping our brand on his shirt for all of you who are watching the video feed. And if you are listening to this in your car with no video, just imagine a beautiful, luxuriant golden hoodie with our logo on it.
It's so toasty here in cold DC. Yeah.
Very nice. All right, Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell the people who you are?
Yeah, thanks. Matt Boland. I work at Körber Supply Chain. I work in the partner end of the business, working with both SI partners and partners like Oro Commerce. Definitely one we're very excited about is the Oro Commerce partnership, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Kind of consider myself a bit of an OMS evangelist, though I started in asset-based supply chain, worked across many different types of supply chain applications. Probably got most excited by the advent of distributed order management many years ago, and has been my passion ever since, despite going into different places. Even when I worked in e-commerce with you, Aaron, it was always like, hey, how can I parlay this into an order management conversation, right? And because most companies have a need for it, they just don't realize it. So bit of an evangelist in that regard, and repping that product along with our partnership with Oro here at Körber Supply Chain.
That is fantastic. Chad, how about you?
Yeah, and my real name is Chadwick, but I definitely go by Chad. So there's just that little tidbit, but definitely from Indianapolis, born and raised. And let's talk about where I started my career. So I actually started out in the world of transportation management systems, implementation, strategy around your transportation. We would run network strategy projects. And so I'd look at how we'd optimize the different freight, either coming inbound or outbound between those locations. But that introduced me to this world of order management, which that is my focus for the past 10 years. And I also work at Körber Supply Chain Software, focused in on the pre-sale side, so solution consultant. But the last 10 years, I've really been focusing on order management and enabling customers, of course, across the realm, whether they're retailers, they're 3PL customers, or B2B customers, like we're really going to focus in on today. We've been enabling them to deploy our solution and add value to the business.
Fantastic. We've had a lot of supply chain folks on in the last year across all different. I've had folks from TMSs. I've had folks who are doing consulting adjacent to like, warehouse optimization and supply chain logistics and all the rest of it. We've not had really a lot of OMS representation yet. So I'm really excited to have you guys on here. We tried it for an educational tone, informative tone. And as you sort of said, Matt, you're right. OMS is one of those things that needs evangelism and needs adoption. We look at technology and processes at Oro and on this podcast as they relate to manufacturing and distribution. So I know there are a lot of consumer brands and retail brands that have OMSs. And I think 5 to 10 years ago, my feeling anyway, is that I don't remember hearing a lot about OMS in a B2B sense. I heard a lot about ERPs. So everybody's got an ERP. And I think most ERPs will say that they have some kind of inventory management, warehouse management, order routing capabilities that they will sell as an OMS module. And that's kind of like, well, I'm already on SAP. I'm already on NetSuite. I'll just use whatever's there. That's at least my historical perception of OMSs. Matt, walk me through how you've seen, you as you said, you've been in this space for a while. How have you seen the market change for order management in the B2B space? What's driving interest in OMS from a segment that probably was still writing down shipments in little green ledger books for years, mailing them back and forth? What's
still out
changing?
There. Yeah. They're still out there. You can find them, and you'd be surprised by some of the enterprise level organizations that are still doing that, or doing things on Excel sheets or what have you, or what we like to say, trying to reduce the toggle tax, right? toggling between system to system to really understand what's going on in their business. That is prevalent. I think what's really happened is, e-commerce is a driver. I think that, e-commerce drives so much conversation. However, the move toward attention toward OMS in the B2B perspective is coming a lot from that D2C move as well, right? So organizations that are brands, right, who are saying, geez, I ship my stuff to this large retail organization, but I'm not shipping directly to my consumer. And a lot of old time folks would say, I don't want to be disintermediated, right? I don't want to be cut out from my retailer because they're coming to me to buy my stuff. But it's just not at that scale today. It really isn't. So what's now we're starting to see is companies are looking to solve the available to promise challenges, and trying to make improved decisioning for their B2B scenarios. And it's really coming from that D2C. So they're talking to order management companies about, how do I solve this problem? Because I've got orders coming in EDI, I've got orders coming in from the websites. But even in this world today, a lot of that B2B, D2C movement is really just a B2C movement, right? It's singular types of orders, like one piece in, order out. So now they're starting to look at these things. And I've worked with a large medical device manufacturer up in the Boston area. And we got to talking because this is probably the key word in B2B order management, is they're trying to solve complex challenges around available to promise. What is actually in my distributed network that I have that I can solve a problem with and make my customer happy, fulfill them on time and in full, in compliance? And I think that's another important thing. I like to say, in the world of B2C, there are no service level agreements, right? There are only, the customer's expectation and your promise to that customer, but none of that's automated. You get it when you get it, right? Or you try your best. In the world of B2B, there are SLA. The SLAs are all over the place, right?
They're written into the contract. They're written into the entitlement. Yeah.
That's exactly what they are. They're a contract, right? And if you're not compliant to that, then, you can get chargebacks, you can get orders canceled. So being able to understand the individual customer in the B2B world is not really something that's recognized in the B2C world. And as I was saying earlier, this medical device company, and I'll stop here because I know I get very verbose and I don't give Chad a chance to talk, or anybody a chance to talk. This company is and they told me, I said, so what are you doing to try to solve this? They said, oh, we're working with MIT and we're working with IBM Watson and I'm like, you don't have to work with them and try to, boil the ocean. You can throw an order management application in, and it can be either a module, like an orchestration module that fits into their existing environment, or it can be an end-to-end order management solution to solve that. Where's my inventory? How do I fulfill it? How do I best fulfill it? And how do I keep it compliant to recognize that customer as an individual to get them the order on time and in full?
Makes a ton of sense. I mean, compliance drives a lot of B2B decision making and not as much B2C decision making for the reason and that you described. And I've certainly seen supply chains become more complex. That's been a running theme, really, with guests we've had on the podcast here in the supply chain industry, is that it is more complicated than it used to be, and the expectations are higher. So the amount of orchestration that goes into getting an order fulfilled in full at the right time to the right person, and also making sure I'm doing that in a margin-friendly way, because you can always brute force that stuff, but you can lose money pretty quickly.
Big
Also,
keyword
brute forcing that SLA.
Big keyword you mentioned right there, margin, right?
Yep. So, Chad, let me ask you this. You're a solutions architect, solutions engineer. From a technical perspective, where does OMS fit into an existing B2B business? Because, as I said, everybody's got an ERP. The ERPs often are the master system of record, the sort of operational heart of the business. Where should you place an OMS? What should it be talking to, and what should it be the system of record for, if anything, given that an ERP is already there?
Yeah, no, it's really a great question. And there's options here. And I think that's the beauty. And that's really what an order management system should bring to the table. In I think you look at the world of B2B. B2B, I'm surprised, right? We're just now really talking about order management in the world of B2B. Let me clarify why. B2B has always had multi-channel, complex orders, many different lines. You could be time framed as well, right? Single order with certain components of your line need to deliver at this date, deliver at this date. And so there's the complexity of really understanding your order and orchestrating against those events. Now let's talk about where it fits in architecturally. Typically, what we would see is it's going to fit in between your order demand channels. So whether orders are coming in via EDI, a B2B e-commerce solution, whether you're picking up the phone, a spreadsheet, a PDF, and you're manually entering, those typically flow into the OMS first, because then the OMS can then make the best decision on behalf of the business on how to fulfill. It also gives the advantage of evaluating a large group of orders. And this is where you start to think about things such as, okay, I may have allocated inventory to an order in the future. Can I pull that inventory back to an order that's a hot order now? And then future inventory that is going to be delivered can be allocated to the order that's shipping out next week. Now, that's if you have your order management system sitting in between demand channels, your ERP, and your WMS. Those orders could flow into the ERP just like you do today, and you have validation, but then the ERP can actually call out to the OMS to say, hey, what's the best decision? Of course, this is modern architecture now, but there are the APIs available to call and say, hey, here's my order. What's the optimal way to fulfill it? And then the response back would tell the ERP, hey, here's how you should fulfill it. And then it goes down through the same integration paths as it would. So there's definitely options and there's no right or wrong way. You could argue that there's certain channels you may flow through the OMS first at an order perspective, whereas other channels may flow through the ERP first. But you really do have options. The idea, though, is that the order management system is adding more intelligence to the business, automating some of the processes that have long been manual in the world of B2B companies. But yes, I mean, you really do have options as it comes to the architectural flow.
Got it. You talked about automation. It also, to me, brings consistency to that decision making. I can imagine, and maybe we'll come back to this later, that there's a lot of in a company where that is a manual, that intelligence, that deciding what is the right way to fulfill this order. In a multi-channel organization with a lot of different sales centers and sales leaders, this becomes very political very quickly, actually, and you will get inconsistent fulfillment decisions from different units because they are looking at it from their point of view. I will absolutely pull inventory from some other centers, pre-allocated inventory to fulfill my order because my quota doesn't have anything to do with their future orders. And then there's a phone call and a VP has to step in. And I think one of the value propositions maybe is that you're building sort of consistent rule-based apolitical decision-making into something that is often a very negotiated settlement most of the time. That takes cycles, it takes time. And while your people are negotiating the right way to fulfill an order, they are not serving the customer actually. Right. So, Matt, we talked earlier in the green room, as we call it, here at the Oro Global Media headquarters. You had said something that really stuck in my mind about order management, kind of having the ability to unlock revenue and save money.
Yeah.
And it struck a chord with me because I've sold a lot of software and services over the years, and talked to a lot of boards and a lot of procurement minded folks out there. And technology systems are often seen as pure cost centers, right? I'm buying a fax machine, I'm buying a printer, I'm buying a machine for my plant, and intellectually, I may know that there is some level of efficiency or revenue on the other side of that, but really, I'm going to buy an OMS to automate some decision making maybe for me, but I just see the cost. How does something as boring as an order management system actually
boring, Aaron.
Yeah, I see. I'm poking the bear here.
Yeah.
How does something as exciting as an OMS unlock revenue? Because I can see where it saves money, but how does it make you more money? I wanted you to share with the audience what you shared with me.
Well, first of all, after Chad's answer, I wanted to jump in with that and double down on some of the things he has, but we'll move on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what's really important to understand it's when you're unlocking revenue through being able to fulfill orders, right? Always being able to have an answer, but you're also increasing margin, you're protecting revenue and profitability through this automating of these rules, right? And all you have to do is look at something as simple as a metric like on time in full to start to apply the value of those types of metrics against your ability to fulfill orders and how that represents money. So there are hard and soft dollars absolutely here. But that's why, if you call Körber or you call a partner like one we jointly worked with recently, Weidenhammer up in Pennsylvania, you should build, what the heck, right? Give them a little love.
Yeah.
We just
Give
recently
a
won
shout
our
out.
first deal together, the three of us.
That's
So
right. That's right. A lot of love for that team. And
team.
yeah.
It's you got to do a business case. You'll have to, right? And doing a business case is about attacking those metrics on not only the failures, but where the automation exists and unlocking dollars, hard and soft. It's not necessarily just a revenue conversation, right? It's like, how do we, but it's revenue through those hard and soft dollars. So, sometimes it's about creating orders that are now no touch, right? All those things we talked about, like moving through different systems, wasted time trying to find inventory, making phone calls, those types of things. There are scenarios in the B2B world, again, trapped within those SLAs that can only be solved by advanced logic. And in many cases, I think one of the things that is, like when I talk about revenue protection, if you dare to ship a customer short, right, when it shows up at the door, they'll just refuse it and they'll cancel the order and they'll go get it from another supplier. So it's as much about revenue protection as it is unlocking revenue. So all these rules are just, they have to be automated. They have to, like Chad mentioned earlier, a lot of times, all these systems are just moving messages from one to the other, right? And you have to go find what system it is. And those systems, again, are just moving messages without logic attached to it, right? So I like to call the OMS the great unifier, right? Because it creates a UI, right? Or you get a UI, or you can run headless, but a place that becomes your system of process. You understand every step of a movement that an order is going through to make that order fail safe, right? And the business intelligence around the OMS is able to kick things out to intervene before an error happens. And that goes right down to labeling. You and I both know the labeling restrictions in the world of B2B is unreal. If you don't ship things to Target the way Target wants that label, so they can just turn it around and send it, then they'll just refuse it. Or they'll say $5,000 chargeback. These are the kind of things that an OMS protects against.
And I wanted,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to just add in here, if you start to think about it, and I may be going a little far ahead here, but a customer could have their own rules, right? You just talked about Target, Matt. They may tell you, you must fulfill in full. Well, what if you don't have that inventory at the home location for that particular store or that Target DC? What do? Do you partially fulfill and then potentially lose revenue on the remaining amount? Or do you actually go look in the network to say, hey, can I bring this in, merge it all together, and then deliver it on time in full? I mean, these are the things that an order management system can unlock. I hear about back orders, right? The ability to manage back orders too. A lot of times, if you're partially fulfilling, you're just canceling the rest. That's a lost opportunity of revenue to say, great, you're just going to receive 2 shipments. So keep your customer abreast to what's happening, right? Let them know, hey, some of your shipment is going to fulfill today, but we're going to have the remainder of that coming in the next few days. So there is definitely that revenue unlock by making sure engaging your customer, but also fulfilling in full. whether that be a split shipment, merge shipment, multi-leg into that customer's location. So there is definitely that opportunity to capture that revenue that you might be missing because you're just canceling it because that's what your rules are set up for.
Makes complete sense. You know, it's interesting. I was thinking as you were talking, I was thinking about this from almost there's the other side of that target equation that you talked about is often feed management, where I'm lit product data, right? I'm listing product data, right? Amazon, Target, Walmart, all of the marketplaces, many suppliers, many channels have their own specific file restrictions on exactly how you list, what you label, right? Because it's all going into a big blender effectively, and they want to have a consistent listing experience and shopping experience. And it's the same thing. The analogy that came to mind was, I think in the B2B space, we understand computer systems and software systems as storing data, as being master systems of record. You'll hear that phrase a lot, right? What is the system of record for price? What is the system of record for inventory and all the rest of it? But there's an understanding that software systems are often systems of record for data, but decisions about that data live in people. They live in departments. They live in
Yeah.
teams, right? They don't live in any kind of like programmatic place where there's consistency applied to them. Everyone's going to query the big black box of data, make decisions about it, and then put their own data back into the box. What you're describing for OMS is really more of a brain. It's really more of a decision making tool. And I think I have to. I'm obliged to mention AI in every episode because it gets the ears and the eyes. But it's a little bit like almost like how we're thinking about AI now in terms of like machines making decisions for us based on rules that we provide the machine in advance. And this has been around a very long time, but it's back in it's back in the conversation. It's back in the zeitgeist again because of AI. Um,
You mentioned something there, Aaron, in system of
oh,
record,
okay,
right? And
okay,
I like this conversation because you could argue that your system of record is more of a financial type of burden, right? But when you think of system of record for inventory availability to the customer, that doesn't have to be your exacts of what you're saying on your ledger, right? You can actually, with an order management system, you can take all of your inventory, you can segment it, you can pre-allocate it, you can do a lot of things to make your order management system your system of record of what the customer would see. So your B2B customer now has this visibility of these SKUs and this availability, but that's very different from your other B2B customer or your other channel that you might be selling through. So I actually think of system of record in sort of two-pronged approach, right? You have your true system of record, warehouse management systems, ERP of what's you're financially responsible for. But then
right.
your order management system can add a level of value or intelligence where it's the system of record, but for the customers. And so the customers don't necessarily care what you're financially responsible for, but they do want to see what they have available to buy.
Right. That's exactly right. And if I'm a distributor, imagine if my suppliers have order management systems and what they are giving me is all of the available quantity in their network. Now I can sell more of their stuff.
Yep.
Right. That's a little bit of the revenue unlock in my mind
Yeah.
is the more this becomes automated and intelligent, the more of the supply chain becomes visible. I think a comment I've heard many times is that B2B e-commerce is the front end of the supply chain, right? The more of that supply chain you can make visible to the end buyer, the more things they can buy. You see this in e-procurement as well, right? It's the same thing. The more centers you can unlock in it, the more people are buying through your system. And now people who would otherwise have never known to go buy from you can come buy from you because you show up in Ariba, you show up in Coupa for them. So
I like what you said there, Aaron, because there's certainly something about, I think what we have to do is also kind of rejigger that whole e-commerce
it's a technical
definition.
term. Technical term.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That definition of e-commerce, right? Because so many people, when you say e-commerce, they think platforms like yours, right? Well, e-commerce is, to Chad's point earlier, it is EDI. Getting
Yeah.
orders into the systems through salespeople is mobile, right? Like mobile internal systems. So much of what happens, and it's absolutely important that an e-commerce platform is a front end for many customers. But for other customers, they may access the e-commerce platform for, customer self-service,
Right.
but their
Account management.
e-commerce starts with that EDI message that comes in.
That's exactly right. Or
Yeah.
e-procurement. They're inside of, a system, and they're just embedding or pulling data out of an e-commerce platform, and they're interacting with something completely different for their business.
And that's
No,
why we
totally.
that's why we put this partnership together with Oro. Is Oro understands B2B commerce for the complexities of it, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry to see, could we have gone to talk to some of the big platforms? Sure. But yours has been built from the ground up, understanding complex catalogs and pricing and what happens when an order comes in that puts you in a different realm of pricing. So we're thinking about all the things we don't do, and you guys are thinking of all the things you don't do, right? And saying, how does this make perfect sense for us to, apply the business logic we have to all that capture you're doing up front? Because also eventually there are so many B2B e-commerce platforms out there that aren't transactional, but they have to get transactional, because think about a customer like Ace Hardware. Well, they're not a customer. True Value, they're a customer of ours. They have to have an order that comes in, but but for those local, they run a franchise. So a lot of those
Right.
companies do business with local people. They're not doing EDI, right? So
No.
eventually customers grow up and they will move to EDI. So it's kind of this perfect storm of, we got to make sure that those who don't use EDI have a flow, have a process, an order capability, and that's got to be online, because everybody's got the internet, let's face
Yeah,
it.
you don't want them to be second-class citizens, I think, as well, in terms of
Beautiful.
their availability to access your inventory, and that does
Beautiful.
unfortunately happen. I appreciate the kind words about Oro as well. It's sort of, you got your order management peanut butter and our e-commerce chocolate, or however you want
Well,
to.
too many
There's
people
a
think about, when they say they do B2B, and it's the same thing in order management. Talk to the order management companies, and as soon as you say the word EDI and you start to think about the tens of thousands of order lines that have to be shipped to the tens of thousands of locations, all of a sudden people are like, they give you the Heisman, right? But
yeah.
but
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same thing. Those people who do that don't want to be entering orders, though it is possible in the Oro commerce system to get those orders in, relook at it, and relaunch the same orders, right? But there is
Sure.
that delta of how people are going to want to do things, and you
Exactly.
have to be able to accommodate them. Love that. Second-class citizen, you're absolutely right. You want them, every customer is important. In fact, you could argue some of those smaller ones are your highest margin customers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, usually,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're not negotiating the crazy entitlements. So Chad, I'm curious, so that was very convincing from Matt, I think, about like why I should have OMS. I always like to ask the question when I'm in a sales context or I'm in a positioning context: what happens if I don't do anything? I will ask someone, hey, you're running an RFP, you think you need an e-commerce platform, you think you need an OMS. What happens if you do nothing? Because a lot of businesses do just keep running things out of an ERP with manual decision making happening to decide how they're going to fulfill. But sales signs a new customer that wants to split fill out of two DCs in a single region instead of a dedicated one, or say, I'm going to blame sales now in all of these use cases. So then sales, can you believe what these sales guys are doing? Then sales sign
Very
someone,
safe target. Very safe.
very safe target. So like sales sign someone who gets acquired by a larger distributor, and they want the new business to have access to their fulfillment centers, but only for certain products, because
Yeah.
there's politics going on or there's contracts being renegotiated. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Where there's a sales brings in a new account, or there's a change in ownership or some corporate structure, and now there's a decision making logical change that has to happen. I mean, if I don't get an OMS, sort of like where does that logic live? What happens? Like what happens to the ERP?
Yeah, a lot of times, I've seen it, right? You're customizing the ERP. In a lot of ERPs, you can customize and build logic in, but now you're just adding band-aids on top of band-aids on top of band-aids, that's not truly scalable. And if you think about really where the industry of B2B is going, you want to be able to deliver to the second tier customers. I hate calling them second tier customers. They are probably your most important customers. Even though they may be 20% of the volume, they are extremely important. But really, if you're looking at onboarding new customers and you do not have a standard process or the ability to say, great, this new customer, they were in this home location, but now they were acquired. Let's open up this customer to be able to look at these nodes within your fulfillment network as well. So they get the same advantage, but it's only for a set of SKUs, right? It's based on the trade agreement. What have you agreed upon that you can buy from us? And so you have that logic built into the order management system. But I really think that customer level rules should live in an order management system, whereas within an ERP, you should not be applying so much logic that you now have. I mean, you can't even reverse a transaction a lot of times in an ERP because you've built so much stringent logic into that ERP. I also think about it as well. A lot of companies add logic into a custom integration layer. That
Mm.
is pretty common, where great orders come in. Now let's apply the logic there before it gets into any system. That is very dangerous, right? You are working at a point in time of applying logic. If you migrate that type of logic to an order management system that sees ahead orders that you have in the future versus as well as what you have now, you have your inventory segmentation rules. You're doing a collective order decision that is based on, again, intelligence. You can have more predictive analysis happening with machine learning, artificial intelligence that says, great, I should go ahead and bring some inventory back to these orders or fair share inventory across these customers to make sure everybody's getting a bit of the pie. But I do think bringing that logic out of an ERP, because it's typically custom, or an integration layer where you're making it custom logic within, again, that point in time reference, bringing it into an OMS system that's evaluating a broader spectrum of all of your orders, your inventory, and what's best for the business.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's interesting. The way I would put that is if you're doing if you're making that logical decision in the integration layer can only make a decision about the message it's received because it's a messaging queue, it's a bus, right?
Right.
And so it can only see what it's been told. It can't see all the other data that you have not told it. Therefore, it can't make an informed decision about allocation and ATP based on like the full supply chain and all across all of your DCs. It just sees one message and
Yeah.
makes a binary decision.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so we're approaching the end of our recording here. We're in the part of the programming where it's Shark Tank, and we've talked about OMS, and you guys have done yeoman's work in not um, talking about Körber specifically up to this point, and we've talked about order management in general as a category, which I think we all agree. Order management as a category needs education, it needs evangelists like Matt, it needs visibility and adoption. But now you guys get to pitch Körber to me and to our audience. Um, and I want to do it fairly quickly, Shark Tank style.
Go,
So,
Chad.
Chad, if you're pitching Körber, what is your 60-second with them? What's in it for me for Körber specifically? And then Matt, I'll come to you. So I don't want to leave you out. You will have a slightly different question, and it'll be a minute, and we'll start the timer now.
Perfect. So what is the value for you? The value in our solution is really that ability to deploy by module. So if you think about the world of order management and you think about the functions, you may not want to invest in all of the functions, right? If you're just looking to solve inventory availability, right? We need to rethink inventory availability for B2B customers, right? Those distributors, those wholesalers. How do you make the right promise? Or if you're struggling with making the right allocation decision, that orchestration, that true DOM engine, deploy that, right? If your inventory is great, you're not over promising, over burdening your distribution centers, but you're trying to make a better decision, just deploy that component. I mean, there's so many different areas where you can deploy just a specific component to add value to the business. And I think that's what we bring to the table.
You did that in under a minute, and that is incredibly impressive. I can tell you do this a lot.
Do I get
So
his
it
time
sounds like,
added onto mine?
yeah. We'll give you an extra 5-second bonus because it's your team. But I like the idea that Körber's order management system is modular, and you don't necessarily have to implement an entire giant system to solve a specific problem. That you can do it one piece at a time. Change management around technology adoption is a big struggle in a lot of
Yes.
organizations, and the ability to do things modularly is a big competitive differentiator. Okay, Matt, yours is slightly different. I need to hear your 60-second elevator pitch for why Körber over a competitor. And Chad kind of alluded to that with the modularity. So you're going to have to pick a different answer. Why Körber over Sterling or one of the many other competitors? And your time starts now.
Yeah, I would say really just you're gonna do an RFP, you're gonna do discovery, invite them all in, right? I think when you start to talk about the B2B modules, you're gonna start to see functionality not beyond the modules that a company like Körber has thought about in the terms of B2B. Fair share, business to business marketplaces, manufacturing capacity, allocation logic against things like you were talking about, Chad was talking about, future shipments and being able to steal inventory to fulfill orders over here while still making sure that stays whole. Cross-docking, right? In the world of B2C, so frequently it's order in, order out, order in, order out. You don't have to merge a bunch of stuff from many different ways. So it's about that business logic. And I think what you'll see is when it comes to looking at all these different systems, once you start talking EDI and you start talking these complexities, the other OMSs start to back out. And you'll find it through the evaluation.
It plays music when the timer is up. At least it does to me. I did not know that.
Oh, we heard it.
Okay. Well, that was the audience. You heard it too. Matt, that was really good. You came in on time also. You didn't even need Chad's extra 5 seconds. So
on
well
time
done.
in full.
On time in full. That's perfect. Okay. Well, this has been really educational. I always end every episode of the B2B Uncut podcast sponsored by Oro Commerce with a non-serious question to my guests. I usually only have one person, but I've got two of you. So you can each answer this one individually. I like to ask people, what is one piece of media that you've consumed in the last few months that really stood out to you? It can be, and that you enjoyed, that you would recommend to other people. It can be a book you've read, a podcast you've listened to, a movie you've seen, a television show, a magazine article, anything like that. What are you into? What do you recommend? Matt, we'll start with you.
It's chaos in the world of information out there. Really, what I try to do is sign up for a few of those newsletter magazines. I mean, from an enjoyable standpoint, I get out and I watch a few comedy on Netflix, right? From a business standpoint, and I'll make
it doesn't have to be a business answer.
No,
you don't
no.
have to give a business serious
That's great.
answer. Just
I'll give you a couple of great adult comedies that I like. Fleabag, go check that one out. And
Okay.
Australian comedy about a barrister, not a lawyer, a barrister, we call them in Australia. That one's called Rake. Go check out those two comedies. Love those two.
Oh, you're the second person to recommend Rake to me.
Rake,
Okay.
I've watched 3 times. So there you go.
Yes.
You don't do that
In
very
fact,
often.
I think I had a previous podcast guest, Jim Herbert from Patchworks, also recommended Rake
Oh,
to
did
me.
he?
So now that two of you, yeah, I think that might
I
have not
listened
been on
to
the
that
recording.
podcast. I missed it.
That might have been on. Well, we chat. Not we believe it or not. I talk to people not on the air. So okay, so a lot newsletters.
Yeah, no,
and
I really
comedy.
just try to pick, I love to get the newsletters and get the bullet points and say, okay, I got to read that. And that's where I'll read
Yep.
because there's too much stuff to read. And, my thing is I try to get away from the people. I mean, I mentioned them today only from the perspective of enterprise type clients. But if people are talking about, here's what Target's doing, here's what Walmart's doing, I tend to stay away from those. I mean, when you're the elephant in the room, you tell people how to work. I like to hear slightly under that enterprise level to see how are people innovating when they don't have a hammer, right?
Well, you can't swing the entire market
Exactly.
with a bulletin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Good answers. Chad, how about you? What are you into?
All right. So I'll start out with I have a 2.5, almost 3-year-old daughter. So Bluey is a
Congratulations.
big watch in our house. So to all of you that love Bluey, I think it is an incredibly great, well-made show. But for the adults, I watched Penguin here not so long ago, and just the fact that that is Colin Farrell is, I mean, incredible to me. He
That's
did,
some good makeup.
yes, he did a great job in that. So I definitely recommend that. But I'm also going to put my nerd hat on. And
Do it.
World of Warcraft came out with the War Within expansion, and so I'm in a guild. We actually raid together on some weeknights. So it is something that I consume, after hours, daughters to bed and wives to bed, and that is part of my consumption. I'm a gamer.
Nice. I like that. And if you're recruiting for your guild, give us the name. We'll put it in the show notes, and maybe some people will hear this, and you'll get some high level people who want to come in and go raiding with you guys on your. I'm not a WoW player myself, but I've got many friends who are. That's good stuff. I like that, guys. I really appreciate your time coming on. I think this was a very good conversation, very educational, and you will note that I always ask the same question to every guest. So if you're looking for recommendations for other things, we've had plenty of nerds on as well. You go check out back episodes of the B2B Uncut podcast, and you'll get lots of media recommendations for books, podcasts, movies, newsletters, magazines, etc.
And subscribe like me. Subscribe.
Like and
B2B
subscribe to
Uncut.
this podcast. That's right. Only good things will happen to you in 2025 if you like and subscribe. Don't break the chain, or you'll be cursed with bad luck. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Again, I appreciate it. Really appreciate our partnership with Körber Supply Chain, and looking forward to more e-commerce and order management partnership in the future, and continue to monitor both of our channels, because I think we're going to be publishing a white paper on marketplaces soon.
Yeah.
That
Looking
was
forward to that.
Yeah, which has got a lot of deep insight in it.
And I
if you're
made
looking-
a promise earlier in the show. If we get in 2025, if we get a Körber and Oro e-commerce and OMS solution, I'll shave my head on this show and enter the world of bald commerce with Aaron Sheehan. Yep.
All right, it is. We have this recorded. That's
I'm
perfect.
there for it.
So the one that we just closed doesn't count, right? So
this has to be net new 2025. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is recorded. This is absolutely going out in the episode, Matt. I'm not going to fix that in post.
Yeah, don't clip it and put it in the front. Just leave it where it is. So anybody
no
who's
clipping.
up bored and dropped off.
You're just gonna shave it.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Very good.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Everyone listening at home, thank you, and have a wonderful, hopefully safe rest of your winter commute.
Very good. Thanks is ours, Aaron.